So taking my little square wing template, keep in mind this is what we started out with. This is what I come to. I just started snipping because I said I wanted the top level. Once that's level, I had to decide the angle of entry for this wing and for how I wanted it to sit. Now this looks pretty sleek. This looks like what you'd see maybe on the back of an airliner. Well, that's perfect for this type of design. That's just fine. But I'm not sure if it's really big enough for this design. So I'm going to cover a quick way to actually make this bigger, but keep my design as a patent. So a prototype is what I mean. So what we're going to do is we're going to make us a little prototype right here and now, you and me, of that right there. I've come up with a shape I like. It looks really good, and I have to admit, it's darn perfect. And if I scale it up a little bit, it'll make a really good wing for another project I have as well. So, I've been working on this design, so I'm going to put it on this aircraft just to try it out. But the horizontal stabilizers are going to be the square ones. That's what this is. This is this guy. It's going to be the tail on top, but it's really not the right shape for this wing. It's actually the right shape for another project I've been working on, and that is going to be epic for that one. It's a very small, sleek tail, and you're going to see that's for the other wing I've been showing how to build as well. You'll see that one coming up soon. I'll probably upload these ones first because this is basically the beginner model. Well, this is a very sleek, very fast tail, and that is not what you want on the beginner model. But there's a bunch of steps involved here, and the biggest one is looking at your finished product. I design each piece and then very carefully plan out where I want my entry to be because I don't want too much resistance here, but I do want some lead up before it hits the wing. So this actually will come right down to touch this, and these will be one with this front of this wing so that it enters here smoothly and then comes up progressively to the top. But if you look very carefully, there's a little shape there between this edge and that edge, and it is a very smooth, progressive kind of thing while being very angular at the same time. That is a really good rudder design that is pretty standard. I mean, there's nothing super special about it, but that's the whole point, guys. You don't need anything super special to make it work well. And if I wanted to copy this, all I have to do is put a little piece of double-sided tape on it, tape it down, and cut it out. Now, the cool thing is, let's say, as in this case, I'm thinking, okay, well, this is cool and all, but I think I want to make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so I take my little bit of that. I take my tape. Here we go. A little bit of double-sided tape. One-handed, it's a little tougher, but I will make do. And we will go like this, and like that, and put a little one-sided tape. No, it's pretty much one-sided. It's supposed to be two-sided. And then we put it down with the two-sided tape. Only, I need to, put this down for a second. So, hold on. Okay, so now I have the world's crappiest piece of double-sided tape on here. But when you pick it up and cut it, you'll find that that is enough. Like, I couldn't put my fingers together and move that, even though if I let it go, it would fall off. So, I'm going to pause. I'm going to cut this out, but I'm going to show you how to make it bigger. And all you're going to do is look at the exact lines you got and try and make a bigger copy of it onto the paper. And then adjust that bigger copy until you get it perfect. Now you have a bigger template. Then do that again. Believe it or not, that's a technique that actually works, and I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so all I've done here is start my cut and then just try and keep the distance I want around the edges, and it allows me to proportion it where I want. So I've got a little thinner line here because I don't want it to extend too much farther forward, but I do want it to be a fair bit taller, and I do want it to be a little bit longer in the stern. So now we take this off, put our double-sided tape there. I take a bigger piece of plastic for my cardstock, big enough to make this out of, and then I do the exact same thing on that, where I'll cut it slightly bigger than I need for the shape and just try and keep it as close to perfect as I can so that once I set it up in place, it looks correct. Now I did do pretty good, and if I put that on there, it holds the same angle, it looks pretty good to my eye, and that is what matters here, guys, your eye. Now, this will be going on a much bigger wing that I'll show you guys coming up. That's going to be a pretty nifty wing, and it should work nice. Man, nifty. I can't believe I said that for like a stealth wing. But hey, whatever. It's a very complicated wing. There's a lot of compound curves and stuff that are, well, cool. There's a lot of edges that are sick, like a samurai sword on the tips. It's sick. So that one you can see in upcoming videos. I'm going to cut this one short because this pretty much concludes our session on how to make the tail. Now, when I put these two together, because this is going to be the template for my other fin, remember? Tell me that doesn't look more proportional than before, but gives me a good shape. It'll give me a nice sleek shaped tail, but with proper proportions. If I lay this tail down from the middle, it should come to right about there in a proper design, believe it or not. And that's a good way to judge your tail length, believe it or not. If you take your tail and you put it in the center of what you plan to be your horizontal stabilizer, that is your elevator, and it's also your ailerons in a small 3-channel model, which this will eventually be. So, there we go. And now, we have it. Haha! That, to my eye, looks perfect, and that is a good template for this. Now, I'm going to put that aside because not only do I not want to lose it or throw it out, but that will now be my template for that particular wing, and I can keep it aside so that I can build it whenever I want, and by doing it the same exact way, I can scale it up or down quite easily, and because they're all using the same size frame and the same basic wing material, they all pretty much are going to be about the same scale, and you don't want to make a huge increase or decrease in your tail surface once you design a decent one. Now, all you have to do is look at ones that are out there and base it on your wing type. If you're trying to make something that looks like an F-86, and I'm pretty much going to show you how to do just that in my next series. This is wing number 1, technically. This is the beginner wing, and this is the one that I want you guys to build first. The Dart. Yo, that thing's fast, yo. That thing's a bullet. I wouldn't recommend that as your first build of one of these. I would recommend you build this one first and then get to know it. And these are going to be my tail pieces right here. And so now that I have my templates made, I'm going to go ahead. And I know you're saying, well, why did you transfer this to plastic then? Why did you make this? And the reason is I did it wrong. I'm thinking about 2 different wing sets at the same time because I'm building 3 of these models. Only one of them is built. So going through my head all the time are the other 2 designs. So I have been trying to figure in my head what kind of tail I wanted to use for my straight wings. Because it's not the type of thing I normally design. I've never designed a straight wing aircraft before. I've designed lots of aircraft. Never a straight wing, old school kind of World War I kind of biplane or monoplane type design, and certainly never something like this. So I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with it, but now I am. Now that I've seen it all coming together and I've put the pieces together, I've figured out exactly what I want. Now, by the time I got to the shape I wanted, I realized it was a little too small for this tail, but it would work really well in the size I just made it for my upcoming, and you will see that tail member again. And until then, I will cut out for this one because this is concluding our section on this part of making the tail. And the next portion, we're going to cut this in half after we make it and turn it into plastic. Then we're going to insert these into the sides of this and the tail, just like we did without gluing it. We're going to set it up. And when we're done setting it up, we're going to adjust it, give it some camber, give it some angle. In the case of this stuff, you really want to bend the plastic for any shape before you try and glue it. When I make a wing, I bend the wing very firmly. And if you look here, there's a crease. That was actually pretty hard to put in this plastic, you might think, but not really. I just had to grab it. I put it in this and used it as a jig. Moved it till it was halfway, then just started right here. Clamped it hard with my fingers and worked my way out to the edge. Again, checked that it was basically centered exactly as I could, and then did the same with the other edge. And then this held the back edge down. That's why I recommend you build it like this. And it's great for the overall weight distribution. The whole thing ends up coming out a nicely weighted, nice flying overall package. Because it needs some weight in the midsection, it needs some weight in the nose, and it needs some weight in the tail. The tail and the glue will provide the weight in the tail. But in the midsection, it's super light, because this is a very, very light wing for the size and amount of lift it has. So it needs nose weight as well, but in our launch system, we account for that. So in the upcoming steps, we will actually make the pieces for this tail, and you'll see it's just this. You double-sided tape it, you put it onto the plastic, you trim it out. That's it. Then you fine-tune it, check it, make sure you like the angles, make sure everything looks good. When you're happy with it, then you put it in place securely, line it up to your perfect. Again, check it, check it, check it, check it. Make sure you check it. And what I mean by that is there's all kinds of ways you could check it. One is saying, hey, I like the look of it. The other one is making sure that it's in the perfect position here and you have the exact right amount sticking out here. And when you make your ailerons, they're going to move together and not interfere with each other. And we're going to cover all that in the making of the tail. It's why it's kind of a long bit on this, because the tail is incredibly important for so many reasons, especially in this model, because it is your only control over the aircraft. Your tail surface and your ailerons here. That's all you've got. So we're going to make the most of those. And we're actually going to, now that we have these in this model, we're actually going to drill down right through on both sides of this, run it right through the middle in an upcoming video, and insert the tail into it in one piece, and then camber the tail slightly up and the wing slightly up. And I will show you guys how to do that. We're just going to set some basic dihedral. And there's dihedral and anhedral and all this other stuff we could get into, but I don't like to go into the technobabble with you guys. This is just strictly how do you build one that doesn't suck. Keith out.